1. Welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. A very, not say different interview because it's in wrestling still, but we've done promotions, we've done wrestlers, of course, we've done wrestling personalities, but now we're going into the world of academies and wrestling schools. And there was one big one in America that brings to mind because there is a there's two famous people that train it. One of them's the head trainer who we've got here. The other one is someone that you all maybe, he's currently the WWE heavyweight champion, Seth Rollins, but we've got the head trainer of the Black and the Brave. I've got it right this time. Wrestling Academy. It's Marek Brave. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on today. Happy to chat with you.
I'm happy that you've decided to come on as well, Marek. It's really interesting because, full disclosure, I done wrestling school for 4 weeks when I was obviously one chin, bit more of a physique about me back then. Realized very very quickly that it just wasn't for me. Bowed out very gracefully with a lot of boot bruises and bumps like everybody else does. But I really wanted to get into the rest that like find out a bit more about wrestling schools and how they work. So tell us about how it started first and go sort of way back to where pretty much when you decided it was going to be a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been in business for a little over 11 years now. But prior to that, I was actually doing a couple classes on my own while Seth was down in Florida training
Yeah.
with NXT. So he actually wasn't called up to the main roster yet. And he used to check in and kind of see how those classes were going. You know, just a bunch of local guys and girls around here. In Davenport, Iowa, but he would check in and see how the classes were going, and we'd kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and he stayed kind of connected to the independent scene in that way, just a scene that he came up through and still has a lot of love for. And back then he was just kind of keeping tabs on everything. And so he made a comment one day that was like, well, when I get called up to the main roster and have the opportunity to move back to Iowa from Florida, maybe we'll start a wrestling school together. And I was like, all right, yeah, sure, why not? Thinking it was one of those things that would be talked about, but we'd never realize the opportunity. And sure enough, he makes his debut with the Shield on what, Survivor Series? I don't
Yeah.
even remember exactly what year it was, but and a week or two later, he sends me a text while I'm working at my job, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to be moving back to Iowa next month. Let's have some meetings and sit down and figure out how we want to do this wrestling school." And I was in my head, I'm like, he was serious about this. All right, cool. Let's give it a shot. And I was actually finishing up a elementary education degree at college at the time. I had gone back to college once I had the neck injury and realized that making it as an in-ring talent wasn't going to work out for me. And I was a semester away from graduating with my degree when he was like, "Let's do it. Let's start it now." And I thought to myself, well, I really want to put in everything that I've got into this school in order to make it successful. I don't want to look back, years down the line and say, "Oh, if only I would have tried a little bit harder. If only I would have had a little bit more time and energy to devote to this project." And so I went to the academic office. I got them to freeze my credits at my college, and I jumped in, 2 feet, head first, so to speak. And thankfully, luckily, it's been a major success. Here we are, 11 years later. We're one of four WWE ID academies, and it's how I make my living now. And it not only a job that pays well, thankfully, but also a job that's very fulfilling, and something that I'm very passionate about. So I did end up a teacher after all. It's just I got to combine my teaching passion with my wrestling passion, and yeah, the rest is history. And I hope to continue doing that for many years to come.
Yeah, I hope so as well. And you mentioned it was fulfilling. We'll get to that. But you did there mention something that I wanted to bring up, and it was about, you were an in-ring performer, obviously, and you did have a neck injury that you had to obviously eventually retire from, unfortunately, at a very, quite early age as well. We were talking about neck injuries. We just know that Will Ospreay's having a neck surgery I think it's, well, today at time of recording. I think he posted it out earlier on. With that, I mean, how for you when you sort of having to make that decision, Was it a difficult one in terms of you giving up on something that you really loved doing, but also was it fairly easy because you kind of know what would have happened if you carried on?
It was an extremely difficult decision. In fact, it wasn't a decision that I made right away. After I suffered my neck injury, I never really found out how serious it was at the time. In America, we have a terrible healthcare system, right? And so I'm a
Yeah.
20-year-old kid. I injure my neck in Florida, which is a 20-hour drive away from Iowa, where I live now. So it's, half a country away. And I went to the hospital. They found out I didn't have insurance. And so they gave me some pretty terrible care, if I'm being honest. And they never did a full spine CT scan. They just did some X-rays and they go, okay, your bones aren't broken, you're okay. Well, it turns out that I had herniated two discs in my neck, which were very close to herniating into my spinal column, which would have left me paralyzed from the waist down. And not only that, I actually did break a vertebrae in my lower back, but they didn't do a full spine scan. They only scanned the neck. And so I had a broken vertebrae in my lower back, two herniated discs in my neck, but I didn't know that. And so at the time, I was like, all right, I'm probably not going to be able to make wrestling a career in terms of getting a contract somewhere. A lot of people don't realize the match that I hurt my neck in was mine and Seth's tryout for Ring of Honor.
Yes.
So we were on the cusp of getting contracts with Ring of Honor. Obviously, he did. I was supposed to be an original member of Age of the Fall with Seth and
Mhm.
Jimmy Jacobs.
Yep.
Obviously, wasn't able to do that because of the injury. But at the time, I didn't realize how serious it was. So I continued to wrestle sparingly, not as often as I had. I was wrestling two, three, four times a week prior to the injury, and then I went down to maybe wrestling a couple times a month after the injury, just kind of a way to really make some money. It was the only thing I
Mhm.
knew how to do to pay my bills. But I really soured on the professional wrestling business at the time because I realized I wasn't going to be able to continue, my ascent within the industry. So I got a little jaded, got a bad attitude. Young kid with a major injury, kind of having something that I loved for my entire life ripped from me at such a young age. Got a little bit of an attitude about it, but thankfully I was able to take some time away from the ring shortly after the neck injury, get it healed up to a point where I was able to step back into the ring and continue wrestling, kind of without the pressures of looking at it like a career, like, oh, I have to impress everybody every time I'm out there. You know what I mean? I kind of got to go do it for me and the audience on or in attendance for the live event. Oftentimes you're like, oh, I really gotta have the best match of my career every time I'm out there because you never know who's watching on video or whatever it may be. So I was able to kind of get back to just enjoying wrestling for what it was and loving wrestling for what it was. And then I suffered another neck injury as a result of the prior neck injury. And that's when I had insurance now. I was a little bit older. I went to the doctor and they told me, whatever you're doing, you need to stop it right now because you're in danger of being paralyzed. If you take one wrong fall, that could be the end for you. So I ended up getting spinal fusion surgery. My C5 through C7 vertebrae, they're fused together. It's a double level fusion, pretty serious situation. And even then, I'll be honest with you, I will still wrestle occasionally. I'm not taking the big bumps. I'm not taking the head drops. I'm not letting people throw me all around, but I'll still wrestle occasionally. If inspiration strikes, right? And if the right storyline presents itself, certainly don't do it for the money anymore. That's what the coaching's for. But I'll still get in the ring every now and again. I'm not fully retired yet. It's hard to hang up the boots completely, right? You still get the
Yeah.
itch. Anybody who's ever been in the ring, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Was it a case when the first one and when you come back from it, you mentioned there that it wasn't about having the best match of your career every night and what and so on and so forth, but it was also, did you have to limit yourself into what you were doing in the ring? As well, saying, no, I can't really take that bump. I'm not going to take that one. It's kind of changing maybe your philosophy in the ring and changing maybe how a match would be laid out, maybe like what you normally lay out a match like.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to learn how to actually work after I hurt my neck. I was just a high flyer, right? And
Yeah.
that's no shade against high flyers. I think it's a phenomenal style of wrestling. Still a fan of it to this day. But when you can do the cool flips, sometimes the fundamentals slip a bit. And
Mm.
to me now, at an older age, and certainly as a professional wrestling coach for more than a decade, I fully understand that professional wrestling is what happens in between the moves. It's the
Yeah.
stories that you tell. And I didn't really realize that until I hurt my neck. And I was still only 3 years into the business when I had hurt my neck. So it was probably right around the time I would have figured that out anyways. But certainly the neck injury kind of accelerated that learning process.
Yeah, definitely so. Let's go back to the Black and the Brave school. And how did it sort of when did it start to, you've been doing it 11 years, but there'll be coming a point where you're like, yeah, this is what, it's kind of working out as you would expect it. Was it right away? Did it take time? What was that process like?
Well, I think there's always that feeling, that voice in the back of your head that says, "Oh, this could end at any moment." Like I
Yeah.
almost feel like I've hit the lottery in a way. Getting to do a job that I'm so passionate about, working with my best friends, and also being compensated well for it, and just being able to stay involved every day with the professional wrestling business, even though I'm not able to have matches every weekend like I used to. So it really does feel like I've hit the lottery. So there's that voice in the back of your head that says this could go away at any moment. So you have to enjoy it every single day. But I would say there was a period right when we first started, before the first class happened, when
Mm.
WWE.com did an article about the school opening maybe a month from when the article came out. And just that article just helped us get an influx of applications. And we filled our first class, I would say, within 2 days of announcing the school. And then we filled the next class within a couple weeks. And then the class after that within a month. And it was like, oh, I think there's a demand for this, and at the
Mm.
time, Seth was the only main roster WWE superstar in history to coach at a wrestling school while he was wrestling for WWE. Shawn Michaels had
Mm.
had a school
Yeah.
after he retired. Booker T has a school after he retires. Cody Rhodes hadn't had a school yet up until that point. So it was really like we were kind of breaking the mold a little bit and kind of setting a new precedent for what professional wrestling schools could be. And kudos to Seth. He's the hardest working man I've ever known. He would wrestle, that was back when they were doing the house shows, the
Yeah.
live events 5 days a week, and he'd wrestle on Raw and he'd do a pay-per-view on a Sunday. And then he'd be back at the school on Tuesday, Wednesday before he was flying back out again to whatever city he was going to. So I think pretty early on, there was a realization that there was a demand for this and it was going to be successful. And then I think just every time we announce a new class and we get those applications flooding in, I'm reminded just how lucky I am to be able to do what I do, but also um, just just how good of a thing that our academy is for the professional
Mm.
wrestling world. Not to sound conceited or anything like that, but it really is a joy to be able to give back and give the knowledge that we've acquired through both Seth and I have been in the business for 22 years now. Which it doesn't feel like that, right? It
Yeah.
feels like we're still the young kids on the block. I remember going to shows when we were 17 or 18, and the rest of the guys in the locker room would be like, "How old are you guys?" We'd be like, "Oh, we're 18 years old." They're like, "Oh my God, you're babies." And now we're nearing 40, and we've been in the business for 22 years, and to be able to take the knowledge that we've acquired over the past 2 decades and pass that on to the future generations of professional wrestlers, like that's just such a cool thing, and something that I'm happy to do each and every day. And like I said, I hope to continue to do that for many years into the future because it's been a ride. It's been an awesome ride.
Yeah, it's been an awesome ride so far, definitely. And I'm say long may it continue after 11 years. The application process, I mean, is it something that you have to, obviously they send videos in, they'll obviously send out an application, they'll send videos, maybe they'll have some matches. How do you make that difficult choice to say, we want you, and we're going to have to cut you? How is
Sure.
it actually made?
So I'm actually the one doing that. If you send an email to blackandbravewrestling@gmail.com, I'm going to be the one that looks at it. If you send in an application, I'm going to be the one going through that application process. Basically, we're not going to discriminate based on height or
Yeah.
weight or gender or sexuality or race, religion, anything like that, right? Wrestlers come in all shapes and sizes. We've had graduates who have weighed over 400 pounds and been 6'6". We've had graduates who have been 4'10" and weighed 95 pounds, right? And they've
Yeah.
all gone on to achieve levels of success within this business. To me, I'm looking for somebody who is passionate about professional wrestling and who has a bit of intelligence about them. You know what I mean? I always say the wrestling business needs more intelligent people at all levels, whether that's
Mm.
as a wrestler, as a referee, as a commentator, as somebody taking money at the door or selling merchandise at the merch tables. We need more intelligent people in this business because professional wrestling is professional or should be professional, right? And
Yeah.
thankfully in 2025, we're kind of going away from the carny promoters from back in the day that would steal people's money and not pay the talent and not deliver on the promises that they've made. And I think by getting intelligent people involved in wrestling, you kind of weed more of those carny people out of it. So yeah, it's really not based on anything other than passion. And if I can tell that you have a bit of intelligence to you, you know what I mean? If you really want to do this, and I can tell you're coachable, then we have a spot for you. It might take a couple years to get it in, but we've got a spot for
Yeah, is it also about like, you've got to be that willing to, I know it sounds stupid because they're going to an academy, but you got to be willing and able to be learn or teachable and learnable, haven't you? Like a spin, I always call it be a sponge. And it's
you. Yeah.
sometimes people can have that sort of brash arrogance about them, but they don't need. They feel as if they could walk into the school, and you may or may not have had people like that that don't need. They feel as if they don't need coaching. But you've mentioned there, you and Seth, 22 years experience there. You just need to be able to sit there and have the passion to A, do it, but B, listen to what you and Seth have got to say in these points.
Yeah, absolutely. And we certainly have had people that come through who have had prior training. I mean, right now, we're in our second week of our current class. There's 13 people in this class, and I think 10 of them have had prior training prior to coming to us. But we have a particular way of doing things. We ask our students to, we're not telling you the way you learned prior was wrong by
Mm,
any means, but we just ask you, hey, you paid money to come here and learn our way, so let's do it our way. And then later on, if you figure out that the way that you learned prior works better for you, as long as it's safe, then we're cool with that. We're not trying
mm.
to tell you that our way is the only correct way of doing things, but we feel like we have a lot of experience and we just want you to try our way, right? But you'll get those people that try to give you a little pushback, and then you just remind them, listen, you paid money to come here. I'm the coach, you're the student. Let's do things my way today. And tomorrow, if you change your mind, so be it. But you do get people like that, but for the most part, everyone's really respectful when they come through, and that's something that we focus on as well. We talk about the etiquette of pro wrestling, and not trying to rub people the wrong way, but standing up for yourself when you need to, and things like that. So not only are we teaching the moves and match structure and psychology and promos, but we're trying to teach you ways to avoid getting heat. But once you leave the school and we're not there holding your hand when you're taking your bookings, it's kind of on you to be able to do the right things and say the right things as well.
Exactly, exactly that. Has it changed the way? I know you say you have a specific way of training people and teaching people, and that's fine, but has it changed over the years? Perhaps there's been a different focus point. Like there was a thing about maybe even using social media, because nowadays it's all, you literally can lay out a whole feud based on sending a tweet or doing a video on
Yeah.
TikTok or something like that. So do you have to incorporate bits and pieces? And is that also sometimes where not just say not just because you Seth's there, but he can kind of see a little bit of that earlier in the WWE. So he's like, look, this is kind of where we're going here. Let's sort of incorporate that into some training sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. Like both Seth and myself, we're not big social media guys. We don't
Hmm.
love it. Actually kind of feel the opposite about it. But we
Hmm.
do recognize the importance, and especially the importance for the younger generation of wrestler just breaking in right now. And
Yeah.
it's a really awesome way, can be a dangerous way if you're not using it properly, but can be an awesome way to get some notoriety and get your name out there. Certainly much easier to do that now than when Seth and I broke in and we were posting on MySpace and rearranging our top eight. You know what I'm saying? So, but yes, we certainly talk about those things. We've actually had seminars where we brought in independent wrestler Effie. I don't know if you're familiar
Yes,
with Effie,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
Effie is phenomenal at marketing and he knows how to promote himself. He knows how to get the world talking about Effie. So we brought in Effie once. He wrestled for the independent promotion that I run, but the night before he was down at the school giving a seminar not on in-ring wrestling, and that's not to say that he couldn't because he's a phenomenal performer himself, but he was giving a seminar on social media and how to get your name out there and how to stay, in the minds and on the lips of the fans that are paying money and purchasing tickets and purchasing your merchandise and whatever it may be. So he came in and gave a seminar on that. And it's certainly things that we talk about. But yeah, there's been a lot of differences between when we started. I was 28 years old when we started. I'm 39 now. I was 17 years old when we started wrestling. So
Yeah.
the business has changed in, just so many ways between 2003 and 2025 and 2014 when we started the school and now and my coaching style has changed as well. When I was in my late 20s, man, I had all of the energy in the world and I was in there and I was yelling and screaming at everybody and being that coach that was in your face all the time. And now I'm a little bit older. I've had the spinal fusion. I've got children of my own that I've raised, alongside this wrestling school. And I don't want to say I've mellowed out in a way where it sounds like the school isn't difficult because it is. It's a very
Mm.
physically intensive and mentally intensive school. Um, but, I've realized there are different ways for different students, right? Everyone
Yeah.
responds differently to different styles of coaching. So if it calls for it, I can still be the guy that screams and yells and gets in your face. But for the most part now, I'm more understanding. Slow it down a little bit. Hey, let's look at this from a different angle. Let's talk about this instead of just flying off the handle like I may have 11 years ago.
I think you go back to your social media. I think the only thing I see Seth post on social media is that he hates football.
He hates football. Yes, I'm in the same boat this year too. I'm a big Miami Dolphins fan. You might see the
Yes.
the photos behind me, and it is not going well for my Miami Dolphins. And by the time anyone listens to this, we will have played on Thursday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills, and I'm not expecting that one to go well.
I think was it WrestleMania 28? Was that not in that arena? I think it may have been.
Oh, probably. Yeah, they've
Oh,
hosted a couple WrestleManias down there.
yeah, that's the one. That was my last one. I went to 4 or 5 in a row from like
Oh,
20.
that's great.
Well, I went 21, 25, 26, 27, 28. So that was
You
my last.
just missed me. I was actually a part of WrestleMania 31. I was one of Rusev's soldiers, which was kind of serendipitous because obviously we all know that's the big Seth Rollins cash in
It
when he
is.
took the title away from I don't remember who had it,
Roman and Brock, wasn't
Rock
it?
or Roman,
Yeah.
but I don't remember who was the champion. But he cashed in and left with the title, which I did not know was going to happen ahead of time. So that was a big surprise, and I was happy to be able to be there in person for that one.
Heist of the Century 1. He recently done Heist of the Century Part 2 on his good
Yeah.
friend, I might add,
Yes.
in
Yes.
wrestling CM Punk. Look, it's a good time to talk about him now, obviously. So if we've mentioned him throughout this, and he's obviously your partner in doing this. You have other teachers and stuff there, but Seth's the main one you started with. You've mentioned before he went on there, his coffee shop's next door, so he can stay
Yeah.
hydrated when he does this stuff with his coffee. But one of the things one of the things that got me, and he's actually a coffee snob. I've seen a video over here in the UK. He tried UK and American foods for it was Snack Wars. It was he liked Bovril, which is a beef paste drink that we have at soccer matches over here.
Wow.
Yes, he preferred that to Starbucks. He said Starbucks. Yeah, he said he tastes like shit. So that was probably.
No, I'm a big fan of Starbucks. I like Starbucks, but
Whoops.
sure.
But going back, what caught me because I was obviously on the website looking at looking at. And that we'll talk about somebody that I know that's attended. We'll talking about him in a minute. But what got me is that Seth obviously so busy. He does so much. And I'm not saying you're not busy, you don't work hard, but Seth obviously travels around the world for WWE. He's doing all of this work. He's, you know, obviously he's got a kid now as well. He's obviously got a child as well now. But he gives the students kind of access to him even when he's away. So he'll obviously come to the school, when the old academy, when he can, but you're allowed to send him videos, you're allowed to send him promos and stuff, and then he will get back to it. And it amazed me quite well that, someone that is so busy still finds that time to give back to wrestling, which, because sometimes you probably sign up, and I expect there'll be doubters that I probably won't hear from him or see him, but to be able to have that and then to have that response must be amazing for the people that are joining, and obviously amazing for you, the fact that he is so busy, but he still finds the time to do this.
Yeah, like I said, he is the hardest working person I've ever met in my life. He's at the academy when his schedule allows, but
Yeah.
even when he's not there, he'll often do Zoom sessions, much like we're doing now,
Yeah.
halfway across the world. He'll do a Zoom session and he'll sit there and he'll watch what you're doing in the ring, or he'll watch your promo and give you immediate feedback and tell you, what he would have done differently, pointers to do better next time. So, he's still involved quite heavily. But like you said, he also is a resource for all of our graduates. And at this point, after 11 years, we have over 250 graduates. I wish I had an exact number for you, but I don't. I've never been good at math, not my strong suit. But, all of our graduates are able to add him on Facebook, get his phone number, text him with questions, give him a call and have a conversation. And like you said, send video of matches, excuse me, send videos of matches to get, match review, film review, to have him sit there and type out, this is what I would have done differently. He is a resource for all of our graduates, all of our students. And, to have somebody, like you mentioned, WWE World Heavyweight Champion, top of the industry, to have somebody available to you that you can pick their brain pretty much 24/7, you know what I mean? Like, he's doing this stuff on airplanes. He buys the Wi-Fi and he sits there and he watches indie wrestling matches that are being done in front of 30 people, and he's telling you, here's what I think you could do to be better next time. And to have that resource, to me, that's invaluable. Once you graduate our program, it's a 12-week training program, right? Pretty standard. Once you graduate, you are able to access our gym, and that's, you use the ring as well as the fitness equipment. We have a pretty extensive collection of fitness equipment at our gym, so you can get a full workout in for no extra charge. There is no monthly charge. Once you graduate the gym, it's a one-time fee. You pay that, you get through the program, you get through the 12 weeks, and you are able to come back. You can relocate here. You can just come back and visit if you'd prefer to do it that way, for free. You're able to send your matches to Seth, send your questions via text, or giving him a phone call or a Facebook DM, whatever it may be, for free. There's no charge for that, no monthly charge, 100% for free. For us, once you graduate the program, you're part of the family. You're part of the Black and Brave family. We're going to be a resource to you for, as long as this school is in existence, which I hope is the rest of our lives. But to me, that's a pretty rare thing, and I understand why other schools aren't able to do that. You got to make your money, so you can pay the bills and whatnot. Thankfully, we have the benefit of having a well compensated worldwide celebrity as the head of what we're doing. But like you mentioned, you will get plenty of access to Seth Rollins if you decide that the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy is a school for you.
And of course, plenty of access to you to do
Yep,
exactly the same thing
absolutely.
because
Yep,
you're
I was just watching a couple matches yesterday and giving critiques on them in the afternoon after I got home from training. So, yep, certainly something that all of our coaches are doing pretty much every day of the week.
yeah, incredible stuff. Just before we start wrapping up, what's it like a day or a week in the life in it? Is it separated into certain things? Is it the start? Does it say day one is kind of like you? Is it like a more of a physical, doing your physical, make sure you're up to the challenge, or
Sure.
how does it work? What's say the first week in the training in this academy like?
Sure. The first day, we actually call it day zero. We don't even count it as part of your 12 weeks of training. It is a conditioning test. We want to see where you're at physically, but we also want to see where you're at mentally. Some people they're young, they've never worked hard, whether that's because they didn't play sports in high school or, whatever it may be. They've never worked hard in a physical manner. So we want to see where you're at physically, but we also want to see where you're at mentally. Can you handle the stressors of being a professional wrestler? It's a difficult business to be in, right? And it's not pass or fail. Or it's not like, we're gonna look at you afterwards and say, all right, you couldn't do 10 burpees in a row, we're kicking you out. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? We want you to try your best. We want you to be the best version of yourself, right? And we're not judging you against other people in your class or past graduates or anything like that. We just want to know that you're willing to put in the work, right? And if you happen to decide that it's too difficult and you want to quit, that's 100% your decision. We're not going to sit there and say, "Get out. You didn't pass. Go home. Thanks for the money." You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
100% on the student to make that decision. But that's day zero, and then week one comes around, and we're starting from the very basics of professional wrestling. We're starting from somersaults, forward rolls, backward rolls, things like that, and then we progress to bumps, and then we progress to running the ropes, and then we learn a bunch of different moves to get you good foundation, and then after that we're going to psychology, in-ring psychology. We're going to sit down and have a video day where we watch wrestling together and we explain the steps of putting a match together, and we watch good examples, we watch bad examples. And then we're going to go to character work and character development and promos, and we're going to have you cut promos. We're going to give you instant critiques on those promos and then ask you to cut them again using the critiques that we've just given you. And then by the end of our training, by the end of the 12 weeks, we're having matches. We're going to have matches. You're going to have matches. We're going to watch your matches and we're going to give you instant critiques, instant feedback on those matches. And then we're going to have you do them again. And then the next day, you're going to do them again and then again. And then, and all the way through until the end of the 12 weeks. By the end of the 12 weeks, every single one of our graduates has been able to have a professional wrestling match, whether they have come to us with years of experience or with no experience, first time stepping into a ring. By the end of our program, you will be able to have a professional wrestling match. Is it going to be a WrestleMania main event? Probably not, right? That's not how this business works. It takes time. You don't know what you don't know until you realize you don't know it. So it takes time. It takes time to get better. Seth got signed to WWE within 7 years of being on the
Yeah.
independents. And honestly, that is an incredibly fast
Mm.
time to get signed. So it does take a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice to achieve your dreams and to reach the goals that you set for yourself on day one. But if you stick with it, we're going to be a resource for you and we're going to try and help you as best we can to make your dreams come true.
That is an incredible week or 12 weeks. This may sound like a stupid question, so apologies if it comes across that way. You said character work there. And I wanted to sort of ask a question about it. Does that include like, and again, I've seen little videos of it, like people working even on the entrance and the way that which they present themselves. If they've got a certain character, they want to present in a certain way. And you see it with Seth. He comes down, sometimes he's dancing with his wacky closet that he has of clothes and sh shoes and stuff like that. But is that something that you would train, look upon as well, or do you just let them sort of, is that something that they just have to do themselves?
Well, we'll certainly discuss it, right? Like, we tell all of our students, hey, if you have gear that you've already purchased or you're thinking about getting and you want to wear it while we're practicing so you can get comfortable in it, absolutely, you're free to do so. If you want to show us pictures of some gear designs that you're thinking of getting made, we'll give you our advice on that. We try to let everyone, we're not sitting there and picking gimmicks for people, right?
Mm.
We're not
Yeah.
telling people you will do this, you will do that, and you will do that, right? We we can give advice. Hey, I think you would do well with something like this based on your personality. Obviously, the old adage is that the best wrestling characters are just what you already are, just with the volume turned up
Yeah.
to maximum volume, turn it up to 11, to reference Spinal Tap. But we're not going to sit there and pick your gimmick out for you and
No.
say you must do that, right? So we want everyone to at the very least try what they want to try, right? And then we'll give our 2 cents. And if you choose to follow that advice, awesome. If you choose not to, that's certainly your prerogative as well. We're not trying to make anyone just be, we're not trying to mold anyone into our
Mm.
exact vision for who they should be. But we're certainly there as a resource. We're certainly there answering questions. And we've had plenty of people that go, "Hey, I want to do this during my entrance. Can I show it to you?" And they show it to us, and we're like, "Oh, hey, that looks great." Or, "Hey, maybe try doing this as this might relate or pertain to your character in a better way." So certainly and one thing I didn't mention at the end of every single training session we have, we reserve a little bit of time for what we call Q&A sessions,
Mhm.
question and answer sessions, and we sit down as a group and we allow our students to ask any questions that they have whatsoever, whether that's about in-ring training or fitness or nutrition or promos or gimmicks or characters or even just wrestling names, or if it's just, "Hey, Seth, what did it feel like to win your first world championship?" Right? No question is a dumb question. Anything that's on your mind, feel free to ask it, and we're there to give you answers. So a lot of times during those Q&A sessions, somebody will say, "Hey, I was watching this movie and it gave me an inspiration for a character I want to do. What do you think?" And then we talk about it then. So yeah, absolutely. We're talking about characters, gimmicks, and entrance gear and all of that stuff.
Excellent. I'm glad it wasn't such a stupid question. I felt like it would have been. Focused.
Not at
And as
all.
we start to wrap up, Marek, I want to take a break away. And I just want to ask you some random wrestling stuff, random wrestling stuff.
Sure. Our own Q&A.
Our own Q&A, right? So one of them is going to be if you had to select your top five favorite wrestling themes of all time, what would they be?
Oh, wrestling themes. Very good.
Mm.
Um, I think I'm gonna go with my favorite wrestler of all time is Shawn Michaels, so I'm gonna go with the sexy boy theme. I love that one. Let's go Undertaker. I don't know if he's number two, but he's certainly in the top five. That is a very iconic wrestling theme, and I love it. Let's go with Freebird for the Fabulous
Oh, wow.
Freebirds, because
Yeah,
I mean, first of all, I believe that was the first entrance song ever, right? Like they
yeah,
kind of introduced
pretty much.
entrance music to professional wrestling with that one, and it's a phenomenal song uh, in and of itself. I was always a huge fan of Bret Hart's theme song. You get the guitar that starts it, the
Yeah.
meow, right? Like the wailing guitar. I really like that. So I'll put Bret Hart's theme in there, and then, ooh, uh, I don't know if it's all time, but I really like Sami Zayn's theme
Yeah.
song. He's got the ska music, like kind
Yeah.
of like the punk rock style. That's the music I listen to. So big fan of that one. That one would be in there. Seth's has a really good theme. That one might be in there. I'm sure as soon as I get off this interview, I'll think of like 10 more and I'll be like, why didn't I say those? Those ones are really good. But DX has a pretty awesome theme song. Hollywood Hogan with the Jimi Hendrix
Oh,
was
Jimi
really
Hendrix.
good too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was solid. A lot of good wrestling themes out there.
There is, there is. Mine always changes. I suppose on the mood or whatever you're doing. But you mentioned Brett, and funny enough, one of my co-hosts on the podcast, she works for an events company, like wrestling events company, over here in Scotland, and they're actually touring with Brett as we speak right now. He's
Oh,
talking in
awesome.
London, so he's doing a show with them. Another question for you is, if you have a table for four people for dinner in the wrestling business, you can invite anybody, past, present, or whatever. Who would you have
Wow.
around that table?
That is a fantastic question. I'm going to go right back to Shawn Michaels. I've had an opportunity to interact with Shawn Michaels. I worked Shawn Michaels alongside Shawn Michaels. I did a week-long coaching stint at NXT a few years back, and so that was a pretty memorable experience for me. So Shawn Michaels is definitely at the table. Probably Andre the Giant, just obviously a larger than life character, both physically and figuratively, and he probably has a lot of really cool stories to tell. So if I can bring him back from the afterlife, I'm gonna throw Andre the Giant at that table. Another guy I want to bring back, Bobby Heenan. Bobby
Yes.
Heenan, just they 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 called him the brain for a reason, right? So I'd love to pick his brain and get some. get some knowledge from him on different things, and then gosh, maybe maybe late 90s Sable or early 2000s Stacy Keibler for other reasons.
Oh, I know those reasons. But that's kind of
Gotta shoot my shot, right?
yeah, absolutely. You do have to shoot the shot. Kind of not a question wrestling related, but who would you like to play you in an action movie if you had every
Oh wow. That's a good one. I'll go with Channing Tatum, right? Channing Tatum. The ladies
Yep.
love some Channing Tatum, and we kind of have, boxy heads and whatnot. So we'll just pretend that I have Channing Tatum's physique, and we'll say Channing Tatum
And the last question
or
before we
Zac Efron, maybe. He's
Zac
already
Efron.
dabbled
Yeah,
in the wrestling films, and also
he
a good
has.
physique on that young man.
He does. Last question before we end up wrapping up. If you and so you have one more opportunity, just say, for example, I know you said you're not fully retired, but just say, everything worked well and you and Seth could have one more tag match together. Who would you get in there with?
I think I'd have to go with Fraxium. We have
Oh,
a graduate as part of that tag team. That would be Nathan Frazier. He is a
yep.
graduate of the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. I'd ask him to slow down a little bit. I'd be like, "Hey, brother, I cannot keep up with you. You're blowing me up." But if we could get in there with them, I think that would be a fun experience to be in the ring. With a graduate at that level, at the WWE level. And then also, I think it'd be a fun experience for him to be in the ring with Seth and to get to share that moment with him. So I think for multiple reasons, I would choose Fraxium to if we could lace him up one more time as a tag team, that's who we'd step across the ring from.
When you was doing promos, would you come out in Seth's clothes? Some of that wardrobe.
Sure, absolutely. Now, see, a lot of people don't know this, but one of my last characters, when I was making the rounds every weekend on the independent scene, was a character called the Fashionista. And part of the Fashionista's whole gimmick was wearing outlandish clothing, and that predated the Drip God, Seth Rollins, by a couple years. And he saw me do that live a few times when he was back home in Iowa. So I'd like to think that there's a possibility that the fashionista Marek Brave influenced the drip god Seth Rollins, and on a much smaller budget. I don't have the money to spend on the outfits that he does, but maybe he took a little inspiration from me, maybe just a smidge.
Maybe he did. Right, as we wrap up now, Marek, look, you mentioned, and we was talking before about applications, and you mentioned that before. I know there's quite a long wait, but people can still apply. How would they go about doing that, and what's the process?
Yep, we always recommend applying at least a year or two in advance. These spots fill up quickly. We try to cap the number at about 15 students per class, and we only run three classes a year. So 45 people a year get the opportunity to train with us. So we do recommend applying as early as you can. Head to our website, blackandbravewrestling.com, or send us an email, blackandbravewrestling@gmail.com. I'll take a look at it. I check that email multiple times every single day, so I try to get back to potential applicants as quickly as possible. But yeah, go ahead and do that. Check out our website. Let us know if you have any questions, and if you do send me an email, you'll hear from me soon.
Them and one of my British friends, Callum Beck, was one of those people that you did
Yes,
see.
yes, Callum, great guy.
Yeah, he was in the picture that you put out recently. With I think he was there with Seth. Was one of the last times
Yep,
Seth was there.
yep.
So definitely do that, everyone. But Marek, it's been brilliant talking to you. It's a fascinating insight as to what happens in it. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on. Before I go, I do have to congratulate our champion Aluna on another successful championship defense at Ignite Wrestling. Buckle Up 3 hour joint show this past weekend. She beat Alexis Falcon, who is a stalwart of the British independent scene. So congratulations to her. I do have to say congratulations to Taylor James, the Ignite champion, for retaining in somewhat well, let's just say dodgy circumstances. So that will be picked up at the next show. But a big thank you to everyone that come out for the Ignite show with us at Buckle Up Free. And the next show is November the 23rd, and that is Curtain Call 4. So get your tickets for that show. But Marek, fantastic talking to you. Thank you so much for taking time. I look forward to seeing more graduates of the Black and the Brave Academy in the future, lacing up the boots, maybe in the WWE. Who knows? But
Yes,
until
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. Maybe we'll do it again sometime. All right.
absolutely. We will. We will do that again sometime, Marek, for sure. But for Marek Brave, this has been Adam Cousins, and you have been watching the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. And until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and goodbye.